questions of life, the most important questions in life, I will tell you openly, without any kind of hedging, the best answers that humanity has ever come across are found in your Hindu heritage, are found in your Upanishads, are found in your Bhagavad Gita, in the Yoga Sutras, in Indian philosophy. The fundamental questions of life. What is the reality about myself? Does God exist? What is the purpose of life? How do I attain that purpose of life? What is spiritual practice? What benefit does it give to me and to society? These questions, fundamental questions of life, the big questions of life, the meaning of life, the purpose of life, these questions have the finest answers I have come across. I have studied widely across the secular and spiritual literatures of the world. I have not come across any texts anywhere close to, say, for example, the Upanishads. So those things are there, and that is something that we need to cultivate. You see, here you are Americans, those who have become American citizens, or you are born here, so you are either by citizenship or by birth, you are Americans, but with an Indian heritage. This should be, or it is in fact, your real identity. You have an enormous heritage. It's like having $1 billion in the bank and you are a billionaire, but the problem is you don't know which bank and where you get that $1 billion. You have no access to it. So you're living on welfare. You're a billionaire, yeah, as a matter of fact, you're a billionaire, but in practice, you're living on welfare. So it's like that. You have this enormous heritage, but no access to it. Where are the keys to it? Your heritage, your identity, you're Americans with an enormously rich heritage, the Indian heritage. The most ancient civilization and the youngest civilization, they meet in you. The world's largest democracy and the world's most advanced democracy, the world's most powerful material civilization, they meet in you. This combination of the ancient and modern, you don't know how good you have it actually.
Namaste. On behalf of the New York Ganesh Temple and Akshayam in particular, I would love to warmly welcome all of you to Anubhava, Part 2, a conference for Hindu young professionals. It is an annual event that is organized by Akshayam, the young professionals team of the New York Ganesh Temple. We started off the conference this morning at 9:30 on Zoom and had free-flowing discussions about whether we can separate spirituality from Hinduism, misappropriation of Hinduism in American mainstream culture and media, and temples as center of Hindu traditions in America. Our participants spoke about religion as a set of lived principles. Spirituality is more of a personal relationship with the Almighty that requires more introspection. They brought up the idea of untranslatables, the idea that certain words in Sanskrit and other regional languages cannot and need not be translated, as it would lose its essence. Attendees spoke about Swami Vivekananda and the need to question, not in an antagonizing way, but with an intent to connect to the Sanatana Dharma in a more customized fashion. Other topics covered in this morning's session include place of atheism in our Dharma, our shared responsibility for defending our practices and promoting it in the West. Dr. Uma Mysirkar, the president of the Hindu Temple Society of North America, joined our session to share with us her experience as a Hindu and where the temple started. She encouraged the young people to play an active role in our community, in our temple, and be part of the larger Hindu dialogue. She shared her vision of Akshayam with us, and attendees were able to ask her their questions. Part 2 of this conference starts now. As the future leaders, volunteers, advocates, and participants in Hindu dialogue and members of the Hindu community, we have an incredible amount of responsibility as young people to educate ourselves and our ancient traditions, about our ancient traditions and practices, so that we can be ready to be proponents of our Sanatana Dharma. The challenges we will face will be different from the ones our parents and grandparents faced. And to be best prepared, we must be comfortable, openly talking with individuals from different perspectives and appreciate their vantage points. We must defend our Dharma because if not for us, who else will? With the environment and the world constantly evolving around us, we must be best prepared to not lose the authenticity of our dharmic ways as a trade-off for acceptance and assimilation in the West. This is one of the many reasons we annually host Anubhava, to offer a platform for young minds to come together, discuss, deliberate, and plan what our shared commitment will look like for this temple and the Hindu community at large. There's no beginning nor end to the Sanatana Dharma, and you may sometimes doubt your purpose and question the value you may be bringing to the table. However, your participation and contribution in sustaining this Dharma in America and helping it thrive is of utmost importance, now more than ever. It is up to us to continue this legacy. So here is Anubhava 2020. The first program will be from Yuva Rhythms. Yuva Rhythms is an ongoing music album and performance project produced by Chinmaya Yuva Kendra West that strives to convey the messages of ancient stotras, bhajans, and sacred texts in a diverse and contemporary way, and provides an avenue for musically inclined youngsters to develop their talent as an offering to the higher. Entirely organized and produced by young adults under the guidance of Swami Sarveshananda, it began in 2012 with the Yuva Rhythms album and has since produced Yuva Rhythms Gurudev the Musical in 2015, Yuva Rhythms Gam Gam Ganapati in 2016, with the next album in the series, Yuva Rhythms Jagat Janani, currently in production. In addition to composing and producing music, the Yuva Rhythms team frequently performs at events across the United States dedicated to spreading the joy of music. Without further ado, Yuva Rhythms.
Om Gananam Tva Ganapatigam Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashrinvannodibhis Siddhasadanam Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha.
And now we have the next piece.
लागी नजरिया शाम पिया मोरी रंग दे चुनरिया हो शाम पिया मोरी रंग दे चुनरिया रंग दे चुनरिया रंग दे चुनरिया हो रंग दे चुनरिया रंग दे चुनरिया हो शाम पिया मोरी रंग दे चुनरिया हो शाम पिया मोरी रंग दे चुनरिया शाम पिया मोरी रंग दे चुनरिया ऐसी रंग दे रंग नाही छूटे ऐसी दे रंग नाही छूटे हो रंग नाही छूटे रंग नाही छूटे धोबिया धोए चाहे सारी उमरिया शाम पिया मोरी रंग दे चुनरिया हो शाम पिया मोरी रंग दे चुनरिया शाम पिया मोरी रंग दे चुनरिया गिरिधर गिरिधर नागर मीरा के प्रभु गिरिधर 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 नागर 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 ओ मीरा कहे प्रभु गिरिधर नागर गिरिधर नागर गिरिधर नागर श्याम चरण में श्याम चरण में श्याम चरण लागी नजरिया शाम पिया मोरी रंग दे चुनरिया हो शाम पिया मोरी रंग दे चुनरिया शाम पिया मोरी रंग दे चुनरिया हो रंग दे चुनरिया हो रंग दे चुनरिया
Wow, that was so beautiful. Before we listen to their final piece, I want to introduce and welcome Sanchit Malhotra to share the stage with me. I want to ask him, namaste, welcome. So he is one of the musicians that you saw, part of Yuva Rhythms. And a bit about Sanchit, he's a composer for visual media, music producer, and performer. He has been a part of Yuva Rhythms since its inception in 2012, initially as a performer and later as a composer and producer since its second album. His music, both within Yuva Rhythms and without, blends facets of his American and Indian upbringings, amalgamating influences from Indian classical music, art rock, hip hop, cinematic, world music, and more. And you can hear more of his music at sanchitmalhotramusic.com. So welcome, Sanchit. Namaste. Nice to meet you. Welcome. We have a few questions that we wanted to ask you before we hear your next piece. The first being, can you tell us a little bit more about Yuva Rhythms and introduce the concept behind the first two music tracks?
Yes. So Yuva Rhythms, as you explained, is a musical project that is done by Chinmay Mission and Chinmay Mission Yuva Kendra, which is the youth wing of Chinmay Mission. And it's a project that began in 2012, basically with the mission to kind of spread the message of our ancient Indian and Hindu traditions, our shlokas or stotras, our bhajans, as well as original lyrics inspired by these topics by some of the members, through kind of a new and contemporary musical language. And we achieve that by being as creative as you can musically while still retaining the authenticity and the intent of the subject matter which we are using. It also, we strive to provide a platform for young folks who are passionate about music to perform and kind of channel their talents into this offering to the higher. And as you mentioned, so far this project has produced 3 albums, beginning in 2012, which with the album called Yuva Rhythms. We have since then done 2 more albums, and our most recent one was called Yuva Rhythms Gam Gam Ganapati, which was themed around Lord Ganesh, which with different stotras and bhajans about Lord Ganesh. We also have an album in the works right now, set to release sometime next year, called Yuva Rhythms Jagat Janani, with the theme being the Devi. Yeah.
Awesome. So congratulations on that work, firstly. So my second question is, why is it important for you as a young person to be part of this Hindu dialogue in America?
I think it's definitely very important for me and all young people who are Hindus to be part of this. Because as you know, we represent, or we're part of 2 different cultures. We are living in America, maybe born in America, or have lived here for many years, but are also trying to carry forth our Hindu roots, our Hindu upbringing. And I think it's very important for us to, for one, to carry this tradition forward and to know as much about it so that we can, continue spreading it and can continue to live by its ideals. But 2, also be able to contextualize it for our unique Indian American lifestyles, because we face challenges or we face situations in life that are very unique to being both American or in the West and having an Indian roots. So I think it's important for us to communicate and be part of a dialogue that helps us contextualize our Hindu upbringing in this manner.
Great, yeah. So how do you connect to the Sanatana Dharma through music or otherwise?
Yeah, so there are many amazing organizations here in America and in the West that are spreading the message of Sanatana Dharma. I personally have been part of Chinmay Mission for many, many years, beginning with their Bal Vihar program, and now as a young adult and a young professional in their Chinmay Yuva Kendra or their youth programs. And that has really given me an opportunity to connect with other like-minded folks within Chinmay Mission and without a Chinmay Mission about what it means to be a Hindu and part of Sanatana Dharma here in the West. And through music as well, the Yuva Rhythms program is very unique, that it's kind of allowed us to, like I mentioned before, channel our creativity and our music into an offering for the higher. And really, it also becomes a very educational experience for us to learn more about our texts, the meaning behind our sacred texts, and how we can contextualize that in a musical way. Yeah.
Great. So our next question is Anubhava. The purpose of Anubhava, which is this conference, is to bring more young people into the temple and encourage more young people to be part of this Hindu dialogue. So what is the responsibility we have as young Hindus, especially in America, to preserve this ancient tradition and these belief systems?
Right. Yeah, I mean, we definitely have a responsibility to keep this tradition going, because obviously, as we grow older, we'll be the ones spreading this tradition to the next generation. So I think it's important for us to connect with as many like-minded folks as possible, to learn as much as we can about our Hindu roots, and also be able to, I think, really learn the intention and the reason behind our traditions. I think it's important for us to not only pass on our values and traditions, but really understand where they came from and why we practice them in the way that we do, so that we can be confident about how we project them and how we spread them to the next generation.
So we have another piece from you, from Yuva Rhythms. Can you tell us a little bit more about this final piece?
Sure. So I realized I forgot to speak on the first 2 like you had asked me to, so I'll really quickly just explain. So the first was simply a chant of the Shloka Gananam Tva. And I included that because we typically, whenever we have the opportunity to perform live for different fundraisers or different programs, we like to begin with this short offering, kind of as a way to, while we try to be as creative as possible and really kind of let the creativity flow in terms of our music, we do want to also ground ourselves with the philosophy and really understand where we're coming from. So we start with this very, more traditional chant in Gananam Tva. After that, we had a version of the bhajan Shampiya sung by Subbanarayanan. And that is actually something interesting, because this is not a Yuva Rhythm song as such. This is not found on any of our albums. But when we perform live, we do enjoy taking bhajans that members of the team like to sing and presenting them in new and unique ways. And finally, the last piece that we will be presenting today is actually from our upcoming album, Jagat Janani. And this is an interpretation of the Sri Kanagadhara Stotram. And you'll hear kind of an excerpt of it. It is quite a lengthy stotram in terms of verses. So this piece that you'll hear is the first 6 or so. But we've done kind of an interpretation according to how we felt the meaning spoke to us and what the text represented. So you'll hear that next.
Perfect. So without further ado, let's go to that next video.
अंगं हरे पुलकभूषणम् आश्रयन्ती भृङ्गाङ्गनेव मुकुलाभरणं तमालम् अङ्गीकृताखिल विभूतिरपाङ्गलीला अङ्गीकृताखिल विभूतिरपाङ्गलीला माङ्गल्यदास्तु मम मङ्गलदेवताया अङ्गं हरे पुलकभूषणम् आश्रयन्ती भृङ्गाङ्गनेव मुकुलाभरणं तमालम् ओ तमालम् मुग्धामुर्वेदधती वदने मुरारि प्रेमतृपा प्रणहितानि गतागतानि मालादृशो मधुकरीवमुत्पलेया सा मे श्रियं दिशतु सागरसम्भवाया आमीलिताक्षवधिगम्या मुदा मुकुन्दम् आनन्दकन्दमनिमेष मानङ्गतन्त्रम् आकेकरस्थितकनिनिकपक्षमनेत्रम् भूत्यै भवे मम भुजङ्गशयाङ्गना
बाह्वन्तरे मधुजित श्वेतकौस्तुभेया हारावलीव हरिनीलमये विभाति कामप्रदा भगवतोऽपि कटाक्षमाला कल्याणमा वहतु मे कमलालया कालाम्बुदा लिललितोरसी कैटभारे धाराधरे स्फुरतिया तडिदङ्गनेव मातु समस्त जगतां महनीयमूर्ति मातु समस्त जगतां महनीयमूर्ति भद्राणि मे दिशतु भार्गवनन्दनाय
प्राप्तं पदं प्रथमतः खलु यत्प्रभावात् माङ्गल्यभाजी मधुमतिनी मन्मथेन मन्मथेन मय्यापतेतदिह मन्थरवीक्षणार्थं मय्यापतेतदिह मन्थरवीक्षणार्थं मन्दालसं च मकरालयकन्यकाया अङ्गं हरे पुलकभूषणमाश्रयन्ती
भृङ्गाङ्गनेव मुकुलाभरणं तमालं तमालम्
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 That was so beautiful, Sanchit, to you and to your entire Yuva Rhythms team. That was so neat. And I think what is really impressive is the fact that you can take something that is so ancient and in our text and these beautiful hymns and put music to it so that young people especially can connect to it. And it's more accessible that way for us to even by heart these lines. So our congratulations to you, Sanchit. I know you're on mute. Maybe you have to unmute from your end, but I wanted to also give a shout out to your co-musicians, Shuru Narayanan, Akshay Rajkumar, and Deepika Sriram for partnering with you on this piece. But thank you so much, Sanchit.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
All the best. Next, it is our pleasure to warmly welcome Swami Sarvapriyananda Ji to deliver our keynote. Swami Sarvapriyananda Ji is the minister and spiritual leader of the Vedanta Society of New York and assumed his duties in January of 2017. Before that, he was the assistant minister of the Vedanta Society of Southern California since December of 2015. Swamiji joined the Ramakrishna Math and Mission in 1994 and received sannyas in 2004. He was the first registrar of the Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda University at Belur Math, and he holds a degree in business management from the Xavier Institute of Management. Today, he will talk under the topic of principles of Sanatana Dharma, the concept of free will and karma. We invite you to send in your questions and comments on Facebook, and we'll get to them towards the end of the session. Without further ado, Swami Sarvapriyananda Ji. Namaste.
Namaste, namaste. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'll start with a short prayer.
Okay.
Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityur ma amritam gamaya Om shanti shanti shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Thank you for having me in this the Anubhava 2020 conference. I've been there earlier at the temple, but this time, of course, everything is online. Before I start, I would also like to congratulate the Yuva Rhythms for their extraordinary, excellent presentation. So the subject that you have picked for this afternoon for the keynote address is the question of free will, which is a very interesting philosophical problem in world philosophy, in world religions. In fact, even today, at this day and age, if you look it up, you will find it's a a hot topic in neuroscience and in the modern philosophy of mind and in many areas. So what is our take from the Sanatana Dharma? What is our perspective? So what I'm going to do now in the few minutes ahead is talk about what the problem is, what is the issue, and finally, what is our perspective on it. So free will is something that we all sort of intuitively feel that I can think of something and I can do it. I feel like if there's a cookie and I want to eat it, I can go ahead and eat it, or I may not eat it. I have the freedom to choose and act as I please. So this feeling that we all have, that we have some kind of freedom of choice and action, this is free will. What is the problem then? The problem is that this free will seems to be there and not there at the same time. We seem to be free, and yet if you look at it a little more closely, we seem not to be free. In fact, when you investigate this whole concept of free will, this whole phenomenon of free will, from a philosophical perspective, from a scientific perspective, and from a religious perspective, you begin to see that there may not be free will at all. What I mean by that is, for example, when you look back at the Bhagavad Gita, so Sri Krishna seems to be absolutely clear that there is free will when he says something like, Uddharet atmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet. Lift yourself up by yourself. Do not degrade yourself by yourself. For the self is you yourself are your best friend, and you yourself are your worst enemy. And then he goes on to explain that when you use your free will to uplift yourself, when we develop ourselves and we grow to our potential, you are your own best friend. But when we do not do that, and we degenerate, we do not attain our potential, we become unhappy. So you are acting against yourself, as it were. You are your own worst enemy. So that seems to imply that there is free will. If there was no free will, how would we develop ourselves? Where is the question of telling us to do something if we're not free to do it? On the other hand, he also says in the Bhagavad Gita more than once, one conclusion that he draws again and again in the Bhagavad Gita is something like this. The 13th chapter, it goes, Prakrityeva karmani kriyamanani sarvasha yapashyati tathatmanam akattaram sapashyati. Nature alone does everything. We are deluded when we think we are doing something. The one who realizes this realizes that the self is not a doer. We actually do not do anything. We only think that we are doing something. The Lord controls everything, and we are like puppets on a machine. We are being whirled around by the will of the Lord. So which is it? Do we have free will or do we not have free will? The Gita seems to say both. Coming to our age, Swami Vivekananda, he exhorts us again and again. He says, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. Obviously, that means we have free will. Otherwise, how would you do any of that? At the same time, here's a quote I pulled up from the complete works of Swami Vivekananda. He says, as long as you are in the network of time, space, and causation, to say you're free is nonsense. Because in that network, all is under rigorous law, sequence, and consequence. Every thought you think is caused, every feeling has been caused. To say that the will is free is sheer nonsense. Will is caught in the network of Maya, and therefore free will is a misnomer. It means nothing, sheer nonsense. So is all this talk about freedom. Now, again and again, we find in the teachings of our scriptures, the teachings of the great saints, that we are not free. It's actually, we are entirely dependent on God's grace. So this is the problem, you see. This brings us to what is called determinism. So in its basic form, the problem is this, that our actions are events in time. So every human action, whatever we do, is an event in time. Whatever is an event in time has a cause, something before it. And it's a consequence of that cause. There is a cause and there is an effect. So if our actions are effects of previous causes, then our actions are not free. Why? Why not? Because if the cause is there, then the consequence must come. The cause is there, the effect must come. It's not free that it may come or may not come. No. If there is a particular cause, then the effect is already predetermined. So this is called determinism. And this follows from a scientific worldview. If everything is following certain scientific laws, then where is the question of freedom? What is free and who is free? Everything is tied by cause and effect. That brings us, this is a good time to introduce karma. So karma, the concept of karma, the law of karma, is a central feature of Indian thought. Not just Sanatana Dharma, not just Hinduism, but Buddhism and Jainism and Sikhism, all the religions which originate in India, they all hold on to some version of karma. So what does karma, what is it in brief? It just means that every action has effects. Actions have consequences. If I do something consciously, which is according to dharma or ethics, I know I'm doing something ethical. So that is called dharma. And the result of dharma is what we call punya. Punya means merit, something good. And that punya gives rise to sukha. Sukha means happiness. So some pleasant thing happens to me because I did dharma sometime in my past, maybe in my past life, and that gave rise to a potency called punya. And the punya fructifies, gives its result. It manifests in my life as something pleasant. I may not know what is the connection, what good thing had I done in the past to deserve this nice thing happening to me now. That is not obvious to me. I may have forgotten, I may not see the connection, but the idea is that it is cause and effect. And the opposite also holds true. If I deliberately do something I know to be wrong, adharma, not dharma, the result will be a demerit, papa. And the result of that is dukkha, some kind of unpleasant, unwanted consequence in my life. Again, I may not know the connections, but it happens. You may say, what is the basis for believing in this? The basis is just causality. We believe in causality in every aspect of our life, that there's a cause and effect. That's the very, very basis of rational thought. All of science is built on causality. All of common sense is built on causality. So karma can be seen as an extension of that idea of causality into our moral life, into our ethical life. But this creates a problem for us, because if my actions, if my thoughts are determined by what I have done in the past, if I'm sort of programmed by my past actions, then how am I free now? Even the desires that I have coming up in my mind, they are there they are conditioned because of my past experiences in life, the past karma that I've done. And my capacity to react to those desires, whether I will do it in a dharmic way or in an adharmic way, what I will think, what I will say, and what I will do, could it be that they are all determined because I'm conditioned by my past karma? So doesn't karma mean that I'm not free? And yet it's rather strange, because karma also means I'm free, because I have done these things. It is, if I'm trapped, if I'm in some sense conditioned, I'm conditioned by myself because I did it in the past. So this law of karma seems to be a kind of a limitation on our free will. This is called determinism. You can put the law of karma in a more modern secular language. I am conditioned by my genetics. I'm conditioned by my upbringing in society. I'm conditioned by the stimuli that I'm exposed to in my environment. And so what I do, what I say and what I do is not free. I am being programmed, conditioned, pushed, cajoled, as it were. And what I do is a consequence of all these things. In no sense is it free. So determinism seems to say that we do not have free will. There is another point of view in this whole debate of free will, which are nowadays called libertarian theories, which say that no, we do have free will. So what are the arguments in favor of free will? I'll give you two. That we do have free will. One is that free will is a mental fact. We feel free. Just because we feel free, can you say that we are free? Well, yes, in a certain way. Our mental states are directly experienced by us. So for example, when I say that I am in pain, so it must be true. The moment I say I am in pain, I feel pain. If I do feel pain, then it's a fact that I am in pain. Exactly like that. If I say I'm happy, I know my internal state of happiness, and therefore it must be true that I am happy because I experience happiness. In the same way, if I experience freedom, if I experience my freedom of choice, my free will, then in some sense I must be free because it's an internal state. To make it more clear, think about contrasts. Sometimes we feel free, sometimes we do not feel free. So sometimes when we feel pressured, or sometimes a person is addicted to drugs or something like that, and they feel that I can't let go of it. I'm sort of trapped, either by my own addiction or by some force from outside, then we feel not free. And in contrast to that, sometimes we feel free. I have a choice to take this vacation or to buy this gadget or to eat this food or that food. So the contrast in our minds, you see, sometimes feeling pressured, not free, and sometimes feeling free and having my own choice. This very contrast shows that free will is possible, that I do have free will at least some of the time. So that's one argument in favor of free will. Another argument, strong argument in favor of free will is, notice that everything that we do sort of assumes free will, especially something like justice, our entire justice system. When we accuse somebody of doing wrongdoing, we naturally assume free will. It is that person has done something wrong, need not have done that, could have done something right, did something bad, hence accused. When the court punishes somebody, puts somebody in prison, one thing that is assumed is free will. It's that person who has done something criminal or something wrong, need not have done that, could have made better choices in life, which means the court believes, society believes, we believe that person had free will. Without free will, you can't blame somebody. Without free will, you cannot punish somebody. Without free will, there is no guilt, even personal guilt. I feel guilty of having done something in my past. Why do I feel guilty? Because I feel that I had the free will, the choice of not doing it, and I still did something wrong, and hence I feel regret or guilt. The very feeling of guilt or regret would not be there if we did not have free will. So the existence of courts and laws and punishment and regret or guilt, all of this points to the fact that free will must be a fact. You can't dismiss free will. So we have these two kinds of theories: a deterministic, hard deterministic theory based on our scientific worldview, which says that there is no free will. By the way, there is even some neuroscience evidence, it seems nowadays, to show that our feeling of free will is an illusion. We really don't have free will. It's all determined by our neural pathways and connections. So that's one point of view. The other point of view is the libertarian point of view, which says that no, we do have free will. There is a third point of view which sort of synthesizes both. The term for that is compatibilism, which speaks for itself. Is there compatibility between no free will and free will? Compatibilism says that freedom and determinism are not opposed to each other. Freedom requires determinism. In what sense? I'll give you three quick examples. I am free to control my body. I want to lift my hand, I can lift my hand. I want to say something, and I do say it. It's only because the nervous system and the muscles of the body, they are all linked in very deterministic ways. I think of something, and then the whole body now carries out my wish. If it was all chaos, nothing led to anything else, there was no causal connection between my thinking, my willing, and the nerves in my hand and the muscles in my hand, I couldn't even lift my hand. I mean, you just have to look at a person suffering from paralysis. So in paralysis, there is no connection between what the person wills. The person wants to raise his or her hand, but the muscles won't obey. The nerves won't obey. There's no deterministic connection anymore. So you see, the deterministic connection in the body and the nervous system enables us to have free will. Another good example is a mathematician. So when you do mathematics, there are laws of mathematics. There are laws of arithmetic. So are the laws of arithmetic or mathematics constraining you, preventing you? Is it a constraint on your free will? No, it enables the mathematician to do mathematics. If it was all chaos, there's nothing, no law, logic to it, then the mathematician could not do mathematics. So the ability to do mathematics, ability to music, for example, there are laws of music. There are certain principles. They don't constrain you. They don't limit your freedom. They, in fact, give you the freedom to do great music, do great mathematics. A nice example we find in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. So somebody told this story to Sri Ramakrishna about the question of free will. Imagine a cow. This is a story from India. Imagine a cow. A farmer has tied the cow to a tree in a field, and the cow, if the cow gets up and starts eating grass and keeps pulling at the rope to get to the greener grass, the farmer may come and give it a longer rope, or maybe give some more rope, or maybe go and tie it in a place with more grass. But if the cow keeps quiet, just sits down and swishes its tail or something like that, then the farmer will leave it alone. Exactly like that, God, if you will, has given a certain amount of freedom, but certain amount of restriction also. The length of the rope is the amount of freedom we have, and the radius in which we can move around, that's the restriction, that's the limit of our free will. But if we utilize it, if we use it, if we push against our boundaries, maybe the expanse, the amount of freedom given to us increases. That's a good way of looking at it. That's a good way of reconciling freedom and determinism. So what do we make of all of this? What's the conclusion? A beautiful paper which I'll be happy to share through you if you like. Professor Arindam Chakravarti, who is a brilliant teacher of Indian philosophy, he is in the University of Hawaii now. He wrote a paper on free will and Sanatana Dharma and free will, so which I'm drawing the conclusion from. He actually quotes from Vivekananda. Vivekananda says, "From freedom we come, in bondage we exist, unto freedom we go." So the individual soul, we come from our real nature, which is Brahman, which is the absolute, which is infinite, free existence, consciousness, bliss. And we seem to be trapped in these bodies and minds, limited individualities with very limited freedom. So there is bondage, not much freedom. But ultimately we go to moksha. The goal of Hinduism, the goal of Sanatana Dharma, the goal of all Indian systems of thought is freedom. Moksha it literally means freedom. Nirvana, Kaivalya, all of the terms used in Indian philosophies, they all mean freedom. So what Vivekananda wants to say is that right now, the will may not be free because the will is subject to the laws of science and psychology and conditioning. But freedom is our real nature. So when we become enlightened, when we attain moksha, we go to freedom. Not free will, but freedom. From a devotional perspective, what it means is we recognize that the feeling of freedom we have now, the free will which we feel now, is ultimately an illusion. But we must use this illusion of free will right now to the hilt. Otherwise, we will not attain the freedom, which is the goal. It sounds complicated, but actually it's pretty simple. It's basically what we do. When we use the kind of freedom available to us, which appears to be that we have some free will, we use it, and then we attain freedom where there is no more willing, there is no more will, but freedom is there. We attain oneness with God, we attain spiritual freedom, whatever you call it. And this Professor Arindam Chakravarti, he ends with a very beautiful conclusion. He says the best way to live, when we hear all this, that we have free will, but it seems to be an illusion, and ultimately there is freedom. The best way to live is to be aware that our so-called free will, this freedom is sort of borrowed from God, borrowed from that ultimate reality, and acknowledge that by surrendering to God. And that surrendering to God is not like becoming a slave or something else, because that God in Sanatana Dharma is our own higher self. It's like surrendering to your own higher self. Then the Gita, what Swami Vivekananda says, all of this becomes meaningful. That as the lower self, identified with body and mind, we do not have much freedom. But when we acknowledge our higher self and try to attain that, then we have freedom. So that Professor Arindam Chakravarti says, we live by salutation. Nama, he says. Nama literally means na mama, not mine. In the Hindu salutation in the temple, all the time we do namaskara, namaste, namaskara, nama. It means not mine, not I, thou my Lord, not I. So this acknowledgement that it is God's will which is operating through everything, even appearing as my so-called free will, this acknowledgement is the wisest way of living. Do what you have to do, live the life you have to live with the consciousness that it is God's will or my higher self where this freedom is to be attained. Yeah, I think that about covers it all. And yeah, we still have some time.
Well, thank you so much, Swami Sarvaprayanandaji. That was very articulate and really brings us, rounds out the discussion about this free will concept and karma. So thank you. We have a few questions coming in from the audience related to this topic. The first one being this contrast that you speak about, the free will being free and not being free at the same time. And actually, sort of a pendulum. Sometimes we feel free, sometimes we don't feel free. Is that a contrast that everybody feels, or is that a result of one's karma? So does everybody go through that, opposing natures, or is it sort of something that the human mind that's not able to grasp the concept of free will goes through?
And it's a good question. Does everybody feel this? We all do. In our state of ignorance, not being enlightened, not being sufficiently spiritually advanced. But there is a class of people, when we become spiritually advanced, when we become enlightened, when we are what is called free while living. Look at the interesting term, Jivan Mukta, free while living. While still in this body, while still in this life, we attain to freedom. So that's what Vivekananda says, attaining to freedom, but then it's no longer a will. What is it like? So what's the difference? In our case, Arjuna puts it very beautifully in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Atakena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha. Anichannapi varshneya baladiva niyojita. In the 4th chapter, I think, or 3rd chapter, he asks Krishna, why does a person do wrong things? What we know to be wrong, what I have decided I won't do it. I am on a diet, I will not eat that extra cookie, and I end up eating that extra cookie. Why do I do that? That's a perennial human question, actually. Why do we, even after understanding what is good, why are we unable to do it? Why are we unable to follow it up? And he asks that free will question. Even though I don't want to do a wrong thing, I am as it were pushed by something. Baladeva, as if by some force, I'm pushed into doing it. What is it? And then Krishna answers, he says that kama esha, krodha esha, desire and anger, these are powerful enemies in spiritual life. These are what limits our freedom. That's our condition. That's what the questioner is speaking about. We feel freedom, but we also feel constrained. It's because desire, anger, these rule us, and they overrule our better sense, our higher sense. But the enlightened person, it's not that we are forever trapped here. When we become spiritually advanced, when we become enlightened, the situation changes completely. If you are of a devotional nature, you will feel the freedom of God. Everything is God's will. So everything is done by God's will, and that is freedom. You depend entirely on God's will. And the whole universe is an expression of the free will of God acting through you. Or if you are on the path of knowledge, you feel that I am not this body and mind. I am this infinite awareness, existence, consciousness, bliss, Satchidananda, which is always free, was free, is free, and is going to be free forever. So in the path of knowledge, in the path of devotion, when we advance sufficiently, we feel a freedom. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for that explanation. And we have another question, which I'll put up here, by Shiva Iyer, who asks, quantum mechanics seems to imply that there is an inherent randomness in the world, which can never be determined. Is this in any way a reaffirmation, or is it sort of refuting our beliefs?
I am not going to answer that directly because I have heard this many times, because I do not know enough about quantum mechanics to give a very cogent answer. What I do know is that theories have been put forward saying that the very the inherent randomness, the probabilistic nature of quantum mechanics, doesn't that show that free will is possible? So what we said earlier about determinism, that everything that we do, every action is an event in time. Every event in time has a cause. And if there's a cause, then it is predetermined. If this cause, this effect, then how are we free? Quantum mechanics, it is proposed. I don't understand it enough to say either this way or that way. It is proposed that quantum mechanics shows if events are at the tiniest level in the universe, if it is probabilistic, not hard determinism, if there is an inherent randomness, that shows that free will actually might be a reality.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. And another person is asking, if karma is cause and effect, when will the effect of good karma or bad karma be seen?
That's a good question. Swami Vivekananda put it very beautifully in a poem. He says that good, good, bad, bad, and none escape the law. So good karma leads to good results, a pleasant life. Bad karma leads to unpleasant effects. And our life is a mixture of pleasant and unpleasant effects. So when does good karma or bad karma, when does it fructify? It fructifies all the time. It gives results all the time. All our days are filled with certain things happening to us, good and bad. Now, karma can be understood in a very strict sense, that whatever is happening to us, and even whatever the events we have in our minds and bodies, they're all results of past karma. In that case, there doesn't seem to be much scope of free will. Even if I think I'm free, it's just being generated by past karma. There is a more looser, more free sense of interpreting the law of karma, which says that just the general outlines of our life are determined by our past karma. So certain good things will happen, certain unpleasant things will happen, but the specifics and the details are often open. And we have a freedom of reacting to these things. That reaction is not determined by karma. So it's like going into a game. Maybe the people you play with, the playground and the equipment you play with, that's given to you. You can't change it. But how you play, to some extent, is still dependent upon you. And on that will depend the results of the game, to some extent at least. So that much freedom we have got. When does the result of that come? So our present life is what is called prarabdha karma. It is a part of our stored up karma. What has been stored up from ages past, in many lives past, a part of that activates and gives rise to this body, to the parents we have, the kind of situation we are born into, the major events of our life, and then we have a certain amount of freedom to play around with these as we will. Is it deterministic? Only to a certain extent. Remember, even if it is determined, it is what we have made of ourselves. It is not somebody else has clamped down on us. We are today what we have made of ourselves, and the way we live our lives today will determine what kind of life we will have later on in the future. So there's a whole theory about this. Some part of it is activated, giving rise to our present life. Other part of it remains stored up. What we do in our present life keeps adding to that store of karma. A lot of good karma gives rise to results quickly. A lot of evil karma gives rise to results quickly. So one practical outcome of all of this is, if you were to give some karma advice, the advice would be to keep on doing good karma, to keep on unselfishly doing good to others, moral, ethical action. Just keep on doing it. What happens is then all our good past karma gets activated. So the results of the good karma keep coming, and the bad karma gets suppressed. So that does not fructify in our present life. The whole point of spirituality, however, is freedom from karma, not to be trapped in this cycle of karma, to realize that our true nature, whether it is God or Brahman, Atman, whatever you call it, is actually beyond karma, beyond determinism. It's only when we are trapped in bodies and minds in this limited individuality that we are subject to karma. As long as we are subject to karma, you can't run away from it. As Swami Vivekananda said, you cannot run away from life. You can't run away from the machine. You must learn how to work the machine, and then it sets you free. So from bad karma to good karma to freedom from karma, that's the path.
Oh, that was so beautifully said, Swami Salvarapriyanandaji. With that, we want to say thank you so much for your time, and thank you for always being a great guru to Akshayam and to all the young people that you've spoken to in the past, and continuing to be a participant in Anubhava. We really do appreciate your time and your knowledge.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Take care. Be safe, everybody.
So with that beautiful keynote address, we now proceed to our next talent, which will be Kritika Rajkumar. Kritika has been learning Bharatanatyam since 1996 under the guidance of Mrs. Sudha Chandrasekhar, artistic director at the Hindu Temple Rhythms in Michigan, and is currently under the tutelage of Guru Srikala Bharat of Chennai. She performed her Arangetram, or dance debut, in May of 2004 at the age of 12, and has since blossomed into an accomplished performer. Kritika has captured much media coverage for her excellence in dance. She was featured in the February 2008 issue of the Dance magazine under Wonder Kids, Child Prodigies in Dance, and was a prize winner in the Cleveland Tyagaraja Aradhana dance competition in 2010. She is a former Miss Malayali North America, Miss India USA first runner-up, and was a top 10 national finalist for Miss World. Kritika graduated from Case Western Reserve University with a double major in political science and psychology, and she graduated from law school from Case Western with her Juris Doctor, and is a trial attorney for one of the largest law firms in the US. So before we hear from Kritika, we want to see her dance piece.
चूड शिव शंकर पार्वती रमणय निगे नमो नमो चंद्रचूड शिव शंकर पार्वती रमणा निगे नमो नमो सुंदर धर विराग धर धर सुंदर धर विराग धर धर गंगाधर गज चर्मांबर गंगाधर गज चर्मांबर चंद्रचूड शिव शंकर पार्वती रमणा निगे नमो नमो गद्यो जातमां वदनम् गंगा चंद्र समागमतीर्थं प्रणवं नादमयुणरुं तुडियो वेदकलामृत पुण्यं प्रकृतियुं निन्नि विकृतियुं निन्नि स्वरंगलिलाय लयंगलिलाय शक्ति स्वरूपं ओम शिवोहं श्री शिवोहं ओम शिवोहं रुद्रं श्रीकरं पुरळलि वसि मरुद्राक्षवु धरिसित परम वैष्णवमुनि गरुड गमन नम्म पुरंदर विठलन प्राण प्रियमुनि चंद्रचूड शिव शंकर पार्वती रमणा निगे नमो तनदानं तदानं तदानं दानं तनं तनदानं तदानं तदानं दानानं तदानं 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 ಶಿವಶಂಕರ ಪಾರ್ವತಿ ರಮಣಯ ನಿನಗೆ ನಮೋ ನಮೋ ಚಂದ್ರಚೂಡ.
Welcome, Kritika, Rajkumar. That was so beautiful. Welcome to Anubhava. And thank you for that beautiful piece.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, great. So we have a few questions that we wanted to ask you, with the first being, how do you maintain your Hindu identity living in the West?
Yeah, so I think as Sanchit was mentioning from your rhythms, I also grew up with Chinmaya Mission in my life through the Balavihar program and now as a young adult in Chinmaya Yoga Kendra, which is their young professional wing. And I think being involved in Chinmaya Mission has given me the opportunity to constantly be surrounded by like-minded individuals. And I think that when you surround yourself with people that are like you, that have the same goals as you, it becomes much easier to sort of attain that goal of wanting to maintain your Hinduism in the United States. So I think I'm really grateful to Chinmaya Mission and the platform and the community that they've provided me to make sure that I'm able to practice my Hinduism even as an Indian American growing up in the United States.
Great, yeah. So why is it important for young people to participate in this Hindu dialogue and be invested in our Hindu temples?
Yeah, I think temple, for me growing up in Detroit, Michigan, the temple was the center of all of my activities growing up, whether it was dance class, music class, Balavihar. And when it was Saturday morning, we would go to the temple, pretty much be there the whole day. And then that was it. We would only go once a week, but the temple was across from my house. And so we would go very, very frequently. And I think the temple was the center of all of my religious activities, all of my cultural activities. And it was also a place of community where I met people that were of my age, met my parents were able to meet, and some of their closest friends, even to this day, are people that we've met through the temple. And so I think it's important for our youth to invest in our temples because that truly is the epicenter of our Hindu communities, right? And it's a common place where whether you're South Indian, North Indian, East Indian, if you're a Hindu, that's a common place that you come to. So that's why it's so important to invest because you are investing not only in a place of religion and a place of worship, but also a place of community.
Beautifully said. Thank you. And my final question to you, Kritika, is you are a beautiful dancer. And so how were you able to connect to the Sanatana Dharma through dance?
Thank you so much. Yeah. So, I mean, I think Bharatanatyam specifically and any classical dance form in India makes it very easy to connect because most of the things that we perform have religious context that are connected to them. So even the video that you showed, Chandrachuda, was on Lord Shiva. And so they're describing all the different attributes of Lord Shiva, how he represents the Brahman and the oneness of everything. And so when you have such messages, when you're learning about the lyrics and when you're learning the meanings of these songs, when they already have a religious context attached to them, it becomes very easy to actually connect to your Sanatana Dharma. And I think the key is for any practitioners of music or dance out there, I really encourage you, if you're looking for as an arts as a way to connect to your spirituality, then definitely look up the lyrics, learn the meaning, and try to contextualize it for yourself and how it applies to you in your daily life. And I think if you're able to do that, then it's a very easy way to connect to your Hinduism through your art form.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kritika, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to us today at Anubhava. And we look forward to working with you in the future and all the best for your future endeavors.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste. So now we will have our next featured speaker talking under the concept of principles of Sanatana Dharma. Can you separate spirituality from Hinduism? Brahmachari Sharanji. Dr. Sharan moved to Washington, D.C. from London to serve as the first full-time director for Hindu life in campus ministry at Georgetown University in 2016, making him the first Hindu monk to serve at a Catholic institution. He is also an adjunct professor at Georgetown's Department of Theology and Linguistics. His academic training in Indology, Sanskrit philology, classical Indian intellectual systems, Indian religious traditions and society, medieval Braj literature, and Vedanta. He's also an instructor of Hindu priests and holds the title of Yagyacharya, Master in Hindu Rituals. Brahmachari Sharanji holds a PhD in Sanskrit and classical Indian languages, literatures, and linguistics from the University of Edinburgh. So it is our pleasure to warmly welcome Brahmachari Sharanji to Anubhava 2020. Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste. Thank you so much for having me, Abhirami. And, congratulations to all of you who put together such a wonderful conference. I've been watching all of the presentations and they have been top notch and thoroughly inspirational. So kudos to you guys. And it's your 5th year, if I'm not mistaken.
It is
Well,
our
I hope that this is 5 of thousands and thousands of years to come. So before I start, just the usual invocation. Om Bhadranno Pivataya Manaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Let goodness indeed pervade our minds. And I think of goodness and I think of auspiciousness, especially when I go to discuss this particular question which you've devised. Now, this question is one that perplexes lots of Hindus. And it is this distinction between spirituality and Hinduism. Now, I'm not going to come at you from the point of view of the scriptures per se. I'm going to come at us from the point of view of scholasticism, of the academic world, because I think that in the United States of America, whether we want to or not, by dint of our major knowledge sources being in English, this Anglophone knowledge is how we have to learn to interact. We have to use it. We have to be able to critique it. That's the central thrust of my work. And in critiquing this Anglophone basis of our knowledge, we get to understand that Anglophone knowledge is, although it has one or two differing perspectives that is, that are noticed whenever a specific discipline is being discussed, by and large, it is founded upon very discernible colonial constructs. And those constructs, even the most progressive of people, are not able to see that they are nevertheless within those colonial constructs. So it's the Hindu's job, I hope, to try and break free of those particular constructs. I was listening to Swamiji just now speaking about free will, and I was thinking that definitely if all of our attachments to the identities that we have are grounded in an Anglophone understanding of our identities, then by sure we definitely need to break free of those. So what do I mean? What is spirituality? Now, spirituality, if you look through all of the definitions for it, spirituality seeks to answer the central spiritual question, an existential question that they deem spiritual. And you know that modern psychology looks at this spiritual question as one of the 7 facets of our human being. And the spiritual question is simply, who am I? Who am I? Now, those of you who remember lovely Charpata Panjarika or the Bhajagovindam, we will know that Koham, Kastvam, Kuta Ayata, Kame Janani, Kome Tata. We've been asking these questions not only from Shankaracharyaji's time, but from the beginning of our philosophical endeavors, right? So to think of Hinduism and spiritual as different, if we understand Hinduism's foundations to be in the thoughts that are contained in the Upanishads, then we are none different than a spiritual endeavor, right? So this spiritual question should promote answers, right? Or at least thoughts. And that's what our yogis, our rishis, our munis did. They came up with different ways of answering this question. So they started with, who am I? When they realized who I am is connected to everything in this multiverse and everything beyond it, they then said, well, what is our purpose here? And that's the second spiritual question. What our purpose here is different to what is defined in the Anglophone cultures. For us, the purpose of our being is simply to learn how to break free of the cycles. Right? That what Swamiji was referring to just now as moksha or nirvana and all of those things. So if that's our purpose and our way of thinking about the world, it's a little bit different than the way that the other parts of the world think about it. Now, the native parts of the world, they do have a lot of commonalities with our way of thinking as well. Native Americans, African spiritual traditions, they all see the quest as being a quest of how do we manage our suffering? How do we escape from our suffering or our discontentment? Because, you know, this word dukkha gets translated only as sorrow when it actually refers to discontent and dissatisfaction as well. So it's both physical and mental. So why is it juxtaposed against Hinduism? To answer that question, you can't look for the answer in the Upanishads and everything else, because for those times, there was no such thing as Hindu and there was no such thing as Hinduism. Hindu is what? That wonderful word that was given to us by other people, right? And if you are looking at, and this is a bit troublesome, so bear with me. I'll get to a place where there is some unity, don't worry. But if we're looking at that word Hindu, we get it from a Western, we get it from Zoroastrians, people who are referring to Sindh, right? The Sindhu River specifically, and people who live over the Sindhu River. We all know this, but we don't usually follow through with that knowledge, right? Now, if you think of Black Lives Matters, if you think of all of the activist movements today, you'll know that a lot of their work, at least the good parts of their work, I think, are based in the liberation academics as being pursued by Latin American studies or African spiritual studies or indigenous Aboriginal studies in Australia. And in those places, they're saying that you need to ask the people how they refer to themselves. How did we refer to ourselves? You ask a Hindu person who's been going to school and everything for the past 50 years, how we refer to ourselves if we're not, quote unquote, Hindu, right? We'd hit a brick. We'd hit a brick wall. Well, there's a little problem. Across our Shastras, we refer to ourselves as Arya. Now, obviously, post the Second World War, that appellation is a bit difficult. But if we look also to other words that are used, the word dharmika is used. But along with the word dharmika, to suggest a basis in morality and moral-facing things, we also get the words Vaishnava, Shaiva, Shakta, Smarta, Pashupata, Veerashaiva. You get all of these different words. But when our lovely Christian missionaries landed on our shores, all of those things were not individual. They were all evidence of the work of the devil. Ergo, not one group of numerous traditions, but one heathenism. And you can follow this through the academia. Will Smeatman has written a lot about this. Brian Pennington has written a lot about this. And in their works, they highlight the fact that actually it was heathenism that went to Hinduism, right? And then that word gets transported into our own cultures because the British people taught us English. So in that way, Hinduism is a religion because it is cast upon the foundations of the Anglophone, Christian, Protestant, English world. What do we do with that here in the 2020 in America? Yeah, what do we do with that? My question to people is simple. Since Hinduism was coined and we as Hindu people used that to gain legitimacy with the people that ruled us, and then finally was able to get enough legitimacy with the people that ruled us so that we could push them out, right? And reestablish some kind of domestic rule over the countries that made up South Asia after they left, obviously. We needed to use it. And so for the past 70 years or so, we've been teaching ourselves that, yes, we are Hindus, we are Hinduism, we're Hindus, we're Hinduism. But what happens when you get the case of the Sarna people, for example, in Jharkhand and Bihar? What happens, for example, when you get the case of the Khasis or the Garus up in Meghalaya and in Assam? What happens with peoples who were never educated by English people, who are still following the ways of the old? And let me put this one more forward to you. What happens to the teachings of the sadhus and the sadhvis who never interfaced with the British Empire, who've been practicing the dharmas as it was handed to them by their gurus since their paramparas began? This should give us a clue to the real glory of our history and our heritage in this country today in 2020. We are not one inclusivist society of people. Inclusivism presumes that we take all different type of peoples, put them in one place, teach them one language, one value system, and wipe out their differences. Get them to go along with each other and eradicate any violence that way. That inclusivist society is what we are not. If we look at the Agama Dambara written by Jayant Bhatt in the 10th century, 11th century, Kashmir, he satirizes a big old, squabble between different traditions. And at the end of this big old squabble, where the king, he's a Shaiva and his wife is a Vaishnava, and the minister of religion is a Mimamsak or a Vedic follower, do you know what they come to the conclusion? The conclusion they come to is, so long as you adhere to some kind of moral understanding, so long as you practice what you say with integrity, and so long as you verify that people are not using your integrity to allow nefarious things to fester and to promulgate, then you're good. That's the kind of thing I would like to see more of. As Hindus, as people who are dharmic, as people who are from Bharatavarsha, we should be able to see multiple pathways as valid. Now, I can be here as a Shaiva and be very happy to speak with my Vaishnava friend, or I could be very antagonistic to this Vaishnava friend. The antagonism comes from where? From this notion that we are right. That's a belief. That's not a settled conclusion. I believe I'm right. It's not a settled conclusion. But seeking an answer, that's where we are. Okay, that's the way you do it. Tell me about it. This is the way I do it. Would you like to listen to it? That kind of the conversation, that type of dialogue, that ability to conceive of multiplicities, the ability to think of how to really establish a pluralist society. That's our heritage. So, 2020 America, this is where we need to bring this discussion. If I say to the census people, I'm not Hindu, I'm Veerashaiva, right? Or I'm not Hindu, I am Ramanuja Vaishnava, right? The census people don't know what the hell's going on. Who are these Lingayatas? Who are these Veerashaivas? Who are these Shakta Kolas? They don't know that. So we must use our brains, obviously. The fact that the world recognizes Hinduism is our gateway into that discussion. What we must not do is to turn to our fellow Hindus and say that you must be like this, or what you're doing is wrong, even though that's a practice that has been ratified in their traditions. In that way, uplifting each one of our Hindu sisters, brothers, and non-binary siblings, uplifting them, we can be a unified people in the United States. If we think that, oh, you guys, you don't let women sit next to men. Now, if you ask my tradition this, we would say everyone is Atman, and all of these bodily distinctions are secondary. We don't have a horse in that race. We don't have a, But that's something that they've been practicing. And if we want to discuss with them, then we should discuss with them. Why are we casting judgment? That's not our way. We don't cast judgment. That's another people's way. Who is right and who is wrong? We know that famous thing, Ayam Nija Paro Veti, We don't cast those kinds of judgment. So if we, in the 21st century, going into the real bulk of the 2020s, because we're only in the first year of this very interesting decade, if we were to really be able to pass on some kind of heritage to our kids and to our friends, to our family members, as they come and interface with a culture that is very good in many ways, but also unable to conceive of multiplicity and of plurality. If we were to be able to do that successfully, then we will be able to pass this on to pass this on successfully. It depends completely on our ability to think like dharmic peoples and not to think like Anglophone colonizer people, right? So I wanted to just leave us with these few things, that if we can think of dharma as a spiritual plurality or a plurality of spiritual traditions, it's a collective. It's a collective of spiritual traditions. We're not a lot of religious dogma. The more that we need to use the framing of the world, which is, most of the countries of the world were set up in the 18 and 1900s, or at least their legislative bodies were set up in the 18 and 1900s, all of them with an understanding of the word religion, right? They have no understanding of the concept of spirituality in the legal documentations. How should we use that to our advantage? Well, if we try to use that stuff at home, we're going to alienate our kids, we're going to alienate our friends, we're going to alienate everyone. If we learn instead to live into the spiritual foundation of our dharmas at home and with our friends, we're not going to be worried about, oh, you didn't wear tilaka today, or oh, you don't have the rudraksha today, or oh, you didn't turn up to this person's puja or that person's wedding. We would be more worried about, okay, how does what I've done today reflect the values and the ethics of the Upanishads? How does how I spoke to my parents, how I spoke to my friends, how does that reflect the wisdom of the Gita that I keep on harping about as my, the trophy of my identity? Yeah, how does that work? If we were more focused on that at home, I'm sure we would love to go to the temples. I end with a little anecdote. As a little kid, I used to go to a mandir, and in the mandir, there were some cupboards at the back of the mandir, right, near the kitchen. And so I was given by an auntie a lovely box of chocolates. I took this box of chocolates. I was like, I don't want my sister to have it. Now, obviously, this isn't awakened or at least studious me. This is a 5-year-old me. I don't want my sister to have it. So I go and find a cupboard and I shove it in the cupboard, close the door. As the puja is going on, I'm getting a bit restless. And so I asked my mom, can I go to the bathroom? She says yes. And I'm going to the bathroom. Really, I'm going to that cupboard to fish out the chocolates. I go to the cupboard. I have one big yell, tirade, released upon me by the auntie who is in the kitchen where these cupboards are. Don't you know that puja is going on? Go back and sit down. To 5-year-old me, what did that mean? That meant that auntie prohibited me from getting my chocolates. I hate the auntie. The auntie was in the kitchen for a reason. What was the reason? To make naivedyam, to make bhoga. I hate naivedya and bhoga. Why was naivedya and bhoga being made anyway? For the puja. I hate pujas. Why is the puja taking place? Because we're in the mandir. I hate the mandir. See, to a 5-year-old, that's how that logic system goes. And I'll tell you that very same system of logic runs through to the teenage years as well. When I hear the aunties gossiping in the back and the uncles gossiping in the back, pointing at people and pulling at their various characteristics of what they perceive to be good or bad, that kind of thing doesn't work. And thankfully, people have been moving away from that. The real glory of the temple is for the temple to serve as not only a place for people to experience their spirituality, but to see the effect of that spirituality in day-to-day life. Are we having conferences? Are we talking about topical things? Are we inviting in various speakers? Are we developing professional networks? All of those things used to be hallmarks of the temples in ancient India. And all of those things, I'm glad to see, like the mandirs that you guys are at, are coming into not only fruition, they are becoming beacons that other temples in the world can follow. So when the temple is thinking about how to do things, if they're able to think about plurality, if they're able to countenance the multiple ways in which human life expresses itself, then our dharma is going to be established. But the more we play the game of, we're the victim, nobody cares about the victim in the United States of America. This is clear across the board. whether you're in education, whether you're in the legal services, it does not care for the victim. It cares for resilience, people who stand up and do what they need to on their own 2 feet. So let's do that for ourselves. Let's do that for our kids. Let's do that for our families. Let's stand up on our own 2 feet when it comes to our spiritualities. And I'm sure that in the US, even our dharma will find a place that it can flourish.
That was so beautifully concluded, Brahmachari Sharanji. I do have a few questions coming in
Sure.
as a segue into future discussions, but a question that somebody asked in the morning session of Anubhava, which I think we wanted to ask you during this part 2 session, is this idea of atheism. Is there a place for atheism in our Sanatana Dharma?
Ooh, that's a good question. So theism presumes that there is a theos, and this is the the gift and the challenge of the Anglophone world, right? The English-speaking world. Theos is who? The creator. Now tell me something. Don't we know that there is no such thing as creation in our dharmas? You may say, well, there's a Brahma. Yeah, but how many Brahmas? Right? How many cycles of expansion and contraction have taken place? And we understand that this is ananta. So if we say that all of this is going on eternally, where is the beginning that there should be a creator? So if there's no creator, where's the theos? This is the answer that's given by a lot of the very early philosophies. And you could go to the Nasadiya Sukta in the Rigveda itself. Maybe it knows where all of this came from, or maybe it does not, because it doesn't exist. Yeah. The ability for us to countenance those questions led to the most fertile discoveries coming up. But because we've been forced, not only by the British speaking, but other empires that were there before us, to think of, only God, then the theist traditions that were there, we have Shaiva, Vaishnava, Shakta traditions that have been there for thousands and thousands of years. The emphasis gets pushed on them because they're more similar to the incoming traditions than the incoming religions than they are to, then the incoming traditions would be, for example, to the traditions that say, focus on yourself, focus on your own mukti. There is no need to worry about whether there is Bhagavan or not. Those people in these incoming religions would have obviously met a very horrible end, as non-belief is seen as very, very problematic to them. So we do have a very strong place for them. Sankhya, early yoga, even early Nyaya, early Vaisheshika, all, and you'll laugh to hear this, but even Vedic Dharma itself did not believe in theos, this one supreme God. But what we as Vedantic people understood from the Upanishads is that for certain people, the philosophical answer is good enough, that there is an ultimate principle. But, that question that starts off the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, evam satata yuktaye bhaktastvam purjupasate ye chapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yogavittama. Those people that worship you with devotion, or those people who meditate on the ultimate principle, which one of them is best? Right? There are those kinds of traditions, and unfortunately, due to the passage of time and the political realities of that time, the ones that meditated on the ultimate principle, they have just about survived, but there is a lot more of the devotional ones. It's just a testament to the ability of our traditions to countenance those kinds of discussions and bring them to a table that says, okay, tell me your point of view because I'm interested. I'll tell you my point of view in case you're interested. But at the end of the day, you don't need to convert to the way I think, and I don't need to convert to the way you think.
Oh, yeah. So thank you for that explanation. And as a sort of follow-up and final question that we have for you is, Anubhava, as you know, is a conference for young Hindu professionals. And Akshayam is a young professionals team within the New York Ganesh Temple. And so we've been given this unique platform to explore our dharmic identity, so on and so forth. And you mentioned in your talk about the importance of resilience. in especially the West. And so as your final take-home message to the young people watching today, education and empowering ourselves is deep-rooted in a fundamental understanding of these belief systems and our understanding of the text. So what is the first step for all of this to be approachable, even to a young person? What is the first step we can take today to educate ourselves? Where do we start?
That's a huge thing, and I could speak on this forever. But if we were to turn it into a tweet, at least, or a couple of tweets, it might go something like this. Number one, focus on community. Building that community within which these questions can be asked, that is of paramount importance. It is built through friendship. It is built through kindness. It is built through sharing the goodness that has been given to me so that another person can also improve in their life, rather than the backbiting that is associated too often with our societies as Indian marriage or nonsense, whatever was on Netflix, really was really overt to spread to the consciousness of this country that this is all we're good for. We instead, number one, that tweet would be build a cohesive community within which these questions can be asked. And number two, once you're together enough that you are trusting enough of one another that you could countenance somebody's really extraneous ideas without saying, oh, that's wrong. Once you've gotten to that point, then seek the advice of people that have a good expertise in this. And not just an expertise, and this is really what I'm doing is parroting Yagyavalkya from the Chandogya Upanishad. He says, don't just look for experts that are expert in book knowledge. Do they live it? Are they people of integrity? Are they crooked? Are they self-serving? You must be able to tell the difference. And once you do, have a group of those people and talk with them. Don't expect them to, print lovely, lovely material and disseminate it themselves, because over the past 800 years, the numbers of those people have been decimated. The support system of those people have been decimated. There is I didn't get any scholarship or any, grant to study the studies I did. I worked summer jobs, right? So like that, we must be able to see where they're having trouble in coming together or giving their time and work with them to come up with the information that our people need.
Well, thank you so much, Brahmachari Sharanji, for your time and for coming on to Anubhava and sharing those pearls of wisdom with us. And we look forward to hearing more from you. And we hope that this journey continues with Akshayam and with this temple. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Sarve bhavas, sarve jana sukhino bhavantu.
So as we near the end of the Anubhava conference, I want to share a few words about Akshayam, the team that organized this event. Akshayam is a team of Hindu young professionals based at the Hindu Temple Society of North America in Flushing, New York, whose aim is to see this temple and our Hindu community sustain and grow for many more generations to come. Members engage in seva at the temple and in our community, discuss topics related to the Sanatana Dharma and its application in our lives, and also host events such as the monthly Hinduism learning series, lecture demonstrations, and cultural programs. The team consists of individuals in their age group of roughly 18 to 35 years old and are diverse in their Hindu perspectives, which establishes a unique platform in a traditional Hindu temple. Akshayam is encouraged to question age-old beliefs in order to find answers that speak to them, so that their connection to the faith is individually customized. Temple leadership and staff advise and mentor Akshayam members and provide a supportive network for the team to pursue its vision and interests. On behalf of my fellow members, I invite all of the young people watching today to join Akshayam, whether you're interested in seva within the temple, engaging with like-minded peers, volunteering in community projects, learning more about our Sanatana Dharma, or just being part of this wonderful community. There's a place for you on our team. I will be displaying the email address at the bottom of the screen. Please feel free to write to us with any questions or to find out more about how to join. At this time, I'd like to introduce some of the Akshayam members who are part of Anubhava's planning committee.
Hi, my name is Karthik Ravishankar. I am a management consultant within the healthcare industry, and I am very, very happy and excited to be a part of the planning committee for this Anubhava conference as part of Akshayam. And overall, I'm really, really excited to be a part of Akshayam for the great community and the great friendships that you can build with people across ages and industries and interests. Thanks.
Namaste, my name is Shohini Sharkar and I'm proud to be a member of the planning committee for Anubhava 2020. I also serve as the vice chair and treasurer of Hindu Students Council and am on the board of directors for Kona.
I am part of the planning committee for this year's Anubhava conducted by Akshayam. It feels great to have a lot of people part of this group coming together to organize events like this and to strengthen our community. We hope to have a lot more people join this group. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Smriti Balasubramanian and I'm a design management student at New York Tech. It's been a great experience with being a part of the planning committee of Anubhava and also being a member of Akshayam, where you can meet so many amazing friends and get a lot of connections across ages with different interests, and also the volunteering experience you get across the temple. So I'm really excited for this. Thank you so much.
My name is Shiva. I hail from Chennai. I've been living in New York for the last 5 years and I've been a member of Akshayam for a little over a month now. I'm very excited to be part of Akshayam as it gives me pleasure and joy to serve our Hindu community and also patronize our temple. And also I believe that it is important for us young people, young professionals to carry forward our traditions in Sanatana Dharma and understand many of its tenets so we can apply it in our lives.
Hi, my name is Srini Narasimharajan. I'm a software developer and I'm a part of the planning committee for the Anubhava conference as part of Akshayam. I enjoy being a part of Akshayam because I get to be a part of the temple, get to interact with a lot of different people at the temple and the community at large.
My name is Dr. Maitreyi Shukla. I'm a physical therapist. I work right here in Long Island in home health care setting. I have loved and so happy to be part of Akshayam in past few weeks. The conversations, the community is great. You learn so many things that you usually would not, even in your day-to-day life as a physical therapist. You get in touch with your roots and you try and see what other people are thinking about, and especially when it comes down to setting something as big as Anubhava, I think the experience and the conversations is amazing. I look forward to see what Anubhav or Akshayam brings forward. I'm so happy to be part of this. Looking forward. Please take care.
So those were some of the members of Akshayam that helped organize today's Anubhava conference. Before I close off, I want to tell you about a few of the temple projects in the next few weeks. The first one on December 13th, there is a health and wellness during the pandemic 2020 show happening on December 13th, Sunday at 11 a.m. It is a discussion and presentation by medical professionals talking about pulmonary issues, infectious diseases, vaccines, hypertension, diabetes, pranayama, meditation, and mental health, to name a few. It'll be live right here on our temple's Facebook and YouTube pages at NY Ganesh Temple, so be sure to check that out. As always, the latest information about the temple timings and services that will be live streamed will be available at nyganeshtemple.org. And so please be sure to check that out. And again, here's our email address for Akshayam in case you wanted to know more about the team and how you can join today. So as always, we thank you for your continuous support of our temple. And with that, thank you for joining us today on this Anubhava journey. We look forward to seeing you all very soon at the temple. Namaste.